Hi there. Welcome to Office Hours. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Before we get started, though, do you mind hitting that subscribe button? It'll help us keep having amazing conversations across travel, entrepreneurship, marketing, and business. Thank you again for listening, and I'm so excited to share today's episode of Office Hours. Hey, David, welcome to your first ever recording of Office Hours.
Hey, Grace. It is so good to be here. I was going to say, long time listener, first time caller. I feel like, this is just like a special podcast to be on.
Thanks. Well, before we dive in, I just want to give a brief bio about you for those that are unaware. David Shull is the CEO and co-founder of Tern, who I was lucky enough to meet in Vegas, in like 2023 or something like that at Virtuosa Travel Week.
Wow.
David is the founder of Tern, which is a B2B travel platform, amazing piece of technology that's basically an all-in-one system for travel advisors and travel agencies. I've had the pleasure of getting to know David over the last few years. We've got a lot of exciting tidbits to share. I'll just sprinkle that in right there, just a little teaser. But from what I've gotten to learn about David, and we'll kind of jump into this more, but you just seem incredibly passionate about this industry and incredibly passionate about building great technology. That's just like an underlying piece of your story that I'm just excited to dig in today. So welcome.
Thank you. It's so good to be here. And you hit the nail on the head. It's like, I always say that building this business has been the combination of like my two great loves. It's like, I love technology. I love building technology, and I've loved travel, and being able to do both at the same time is kind of like a dream come true. So it's really fun to be kind of sharing that story today.
Well, can you, and I love to dig into the human component of the people we bring on. Like, yeah, it's great to know about Turn and all those lovely things, and we'll get to that. But can you just kind of give me a little glimpse into how the heck you ended up in this industry and building this company?
Yeah, I'll give you the medium to short version, but went to a university in northern Michigan called Michigan Tech. If you haven't heard of it, it is literally north of 80% of the Canadian population. So it's quite literally in the middle of nowhere and very difficult to get to. It was there that I connected with the three co-founders of a company called Handshake. And we started building with the belief that technology could level that playing field for college and university students trying to find their first job. That was the first tech company. Spent 8 years there. I started, it was four of us in the living room. I left, it was 850 people. I just hit a $3.5 billion valuation. It was an absolute incredible ride. But really showed me two things. Like, one, just how rewarding it is to build a technology company, and two, like how rewarding it can be to build a technology company that actually makes a difference in people's lives. Like, we were helping students find jobs and internships that they never would have been able to do before. And so as we started thinking about what was next, one of my co-founders, Katie, and I in particular, was throwing around all kinds of ideas, but really looking for that thing that combined those two passions, right? Like for building technology companies and something that we loved. We know, especially as founders, like you're committing to this for potentially 20 or 30 years. And like, what was the thing that would keep us going? And long story short, I had this set of travel mishaps in Greece in 2021 that led me to realize, like, I really probably should have been using a travel advisor. My in-laws use a travel advisor for every single trip they did. And I was like, wow, I wonder if I had used a travel advisor, if I'd be having these better experiences. And weirdly enough, this like disconnect occurred to my head where I was like, maybe I should become a travel advisor. And then I was like, the whole reason we're here is because you didn't plan it very well. So maybe you should actually build the technology instead. And so that's where we kind of came up with the idea for Tern. And now here we are.
That's, first of all, now I know I'm never having you book my travel. No, I'm kidding. Good to know. And yeah, I mean, one of the most amazing parts of the story, though, is like that you had this really interesting experience and just felt like, how do I go apply this to another industry that makes a lot of sense, that I'm really excited about? And yeah, everyone should have a travel advisor going to Greece. I've had my own fair share of mishaps there. And that's, I think, the major takeaway here.
It'll get you.
Really? Okay, before we get into the sprinkled hot gossip that we teased earlier, for those that are newer to Tern, I gave my own spiel, but can you give your version of what is Tern for anyone that's interested in knowing what you do?
Yeah, 100%. So the kind of end of that story there actually culminated in us going to ASTA in 2022. And before we committed to building a company, we wanted to know if there were problems to solve. And like what we heard from almost every person that we talked to, whether it's a travel advisor, an agency owner, a travel company, a supplier, was that there was this massive fragmentation problem. You had travel advisors that were using, an itinerary builder, and then they had to like enter the same data into their CRM, but then they had a Excel spreadsheet for their finances, and then they entered their bookings into the agency back office. And I remember like talking to an advisor, and I was like, well, if you had one platform that could do like all of that, like would that be better? And they were just like desperation in their eyes, like, oh, that would be amazing, but it's just not possible. And I was like, not possible. Like, we can like send things into space and land them on barges in the ocean, but we can't build an all-in-one system for travel advisors. Like, it's got to be possible. And so with Tern, we are building the all-in-one system for the travel industry. We're bringing together that, kind of beautiful itineraries, proposals, really thinking about that in a way that's never been done before, but tying it into a back office for the advisor, for the agency. We believe that we can build the platform that can eliminate the invisible work, which is that kind of manual data entry that we talk a lot about, and really supercharge the travel industry in the process. And so that's we're doing that with technology. We're starting to expand the way that we're thinking about doing that, and it's been really fun.
So let's talk about the expanding part of that. We can get to the
We can talk
expansion.
about the hot gossip now.
Oh, gossip! I know you're like so excited. I know, me too. Oh, I'll kind of I'll drop the hammer here of what the hot gossip is, and then we'll jump into some questions I want to ask you about it. But the big news that we wanted to share, and that probably if you're listening to this, you might already have a sense of this from some of the news coming out by the time this will be posted. But Tern has decided to acquire Lucia and bring it into the Tern ecosystem. Yeah.
Woo!
Brief round of applause. Yeah, we're so excited. Tern has decided to bring Lucia into the ecosystem. David, what does that mean? What the heck? Why did we do this?
This is wild, right? I mean, I break it down into like two things, right? Like, one is just like when you're building a business, really like the success and failure of the business is all about the people, right? And so over the past several years, like getting to know Grace, like watching what she's been building at Lucia, you can always tell myself, like, if there's ever an opportunity to work with Grace, like, I would jump on that opportunity, right? Because like you just can't have enough truly incredible people as a part of your organization helping try and solve hard problems for travel advisors. So I think about that as like pillar number two. The second pillar is like we really think about that mission for Tern of like how do we supercharge the travel advisors and agency owners that we think really make up the foundation of this business. Obviously, technology plays a huge role in that, but it's not the only part of the business, right? You think about what should my social media strategy be like, or I need help moving my data over to Tern from my legacy system, right? The list goes on and on. And pretty quickly, you start to realize that in order to help the advisor really maximize their potential, you need this kind of pairing of great technology and great services to really enable the future state that we envision. And so as we started, talking to Grace and already being very sold on her as like an incredible add to the team, we started to meet the rest of the Lucia team. We started to dig into the implications. We started to look at how many people on Tern were already using Lucia. We're like, this is just such a natural complement to the vision that we see for this industry. And so couldn't be more excited that Grace entertained the random phone call that one day and was like, all right, maybe we could talk about this. And we get to be sharing the news with all of you today.
Yeah, and I will say when you reached out and you're like, we should chat. Let's hop on the phone. And it was after we had just seen each other at Las Vegas Travel Agent Forum. And I was like, I feel like I might know what this is about, but I'm not quite sure. But was after just talking with you more about it, the goal of Lucia, and I've talked about this 100 times, but the goal of Lucia was always to build small businesses and help them grow really well, really efficiently, and really scalably. And that was a challenge that we had seen at our own travel agency when I was an advisor. And it was something that we were trying to really, really solve. Because like you said, there's so much technology out there and it's becoming amazing, especially with the Tern platform, but you need to be able to find a way to service it as well. And there was an incredible article you actually sent me. I'll find a way and see if I can find it, just link in the show notes, but it's an article about how AI is becoming so reliant upon services as well, like finding ways to use services to implement AI and other uses of technology. And that's like one of the core theses as to why we loved building Lucia and thought it was really useful. And so the idea of combining the two together, taking an incredible technology platform that really does the most for every asset, every part, every facet, not asset within the industry, we just felt like it would be the best partnership between the two. So yeah, for me, it was helping grow these travel advisor, and travel agency businesses. And to be able to do that within Tern is just unbelievable. So yes, I'm going to be joining the Tern team. I've already joined the Tern team by the time we're announcing this, and we're going to be taking the world by storm here. But really, the
So
primary goal
exciting.
is I know, I'm like so excited. Primary goal is to help advisors that, especially those that are using Tern, really find the benefits of using services in their business and working with our amazing co-pilots. So for those of you who are excited about it, we'll share so much more information in the coming weeks. We're just really excited to share that little sprinkle of gossip.
Oh, And it is really going to be so exciting. I mean, like that we've got so many ideas for what this can look like, and we'll continue to talk about implications and things like that. But it really, I think, will be one of those moments in the industry that we look back on in a decade, and we're like, that was a big turning point in the way that you know instead of technology companies and service companies, it's really like, how do we focus on what matters the most, which is like empowering all of you that are listening to this, and doing that with both technology and services is probably the right way to do it. So
Was there a part of the kind of transition process, the acquisition process, closing process that surprised you the most? I'm throwing you a curveball
ooh,
on purpose.
that's a great question. I mean, I don't know that it was. I think like, I mean, there's lots of details, right? I mean, I think like just meeting, Thea on the Lucia team, spending more time with you, like really starting to think about like what does the future of this look like, and just how aligned it was. Like, I think I actually expected it to be like a little bit more debate and friction, but like really the way that we see the world and the direction we're going, I think was like a very pleasant surprise. And then I think just like looking at, as we dug in, how many people were either already using Lucia, or what was interesting is like, as we kind of prepared this and presented to the board, like we put together this pretty in-depth survey and started overlay where people were at in their travel business by kind of sales volume with the types of services that they needed. And what really jumped out with us was like almost every advisor said they needed help in some area, but like how that evolved over time was very different. And it was just so cool seeing that across the existing network of Tern users, where like the demand was there. And I think that's what I'm excited about, moving forward, is like continue to be able to offer services, across the Lucia platform. But like if you're a Tern user, being able to have trained co-pilots that can be like, hey, we know you have this challenge at this stage. Here's a solution to it. And like, I think that's just going to be so compelling to be able to have the data on both sides to contextualize the services in a way that really isn't possible when those things are separate.
Yeah. I can officially say, as someone who's always kind of claimed we were Switzerland, we were always kind of, servicing, and we still are servicing every platform, every technology out there. But now we've kind of said this is what we firmly believe in is probably going to be, not probably, we've been acquired by you guys. So we very firmly believe we wouldn't have made this decision otherwise. But like, it's one of those moments where like we very much believe in what Tern's building and that it's the right technology for advisors. So I'm very personally excited about it. The thing that surprised me the most, though, frankly, was because we always chose that like Switzerland status. I'll admit we always kind of took a backseat approach to understanding the platforms because the co-pilots were the ones doing the actual execution. We needed to make sure that we were helping like grow the funnel on both sides of our marketplace and just make sure we were growing our business. And so we never really became like fully ingrained and understanding all of the platforms. So the more I've been onboarded into Tern, the more pleasantly surprised I am. Just I knew it was a fantastic platform, and that's why we went forward with the acquisition. But now seeing even behind the curtain, just all of the things that Tern's not only has right now, but what you're planning on building and growing and what's in the pipeline already to be released is just unbelievable. So yeah, that was just part A of why I was so surprised. And then part B was also just intensely listening to customers. I was not a part of the Tern Facebook group before this. So if any of you are not currently, just go take a look on Facebook. Their Facebook group is always popping off, always users giving feedback, and you're in there all the time, commenting
All the
back.
time.
The
Yeah.
whole team. It's
It,
unbelievable.
it's become a little bit of a problem. I'll be like literally like, falling asleep at night, be like, oh, I'll just check the Facebook group. And like people are tagging me, like wake up in the morning, check the Facebook group. I like probably need to like wean myself off that. But it's just such a cool way. I mean, like you've now seen this as you've kind of joined the org and seen how we operate. But like one of our core values is really being laser focused on what actually matters to our users, and having a direct channel to them is important. We just talked about this on our podcast last week, which was like, there's this like natural pull sometimes as organizations get bigger to like insulate oneself from user feedback, because user feedback isn't always like comfy. And
Very uncomfortable.
in fact, a lot of times it's like a lot of people calling your
It's like
baby
the
ugly,
worst.
and like you just got to lean into that and be like, and so like that's where it's, I think, been really cool, is like trying to operationalize that, like staying close to the space, staying close to the industry, listening. And honestly, it's a lot of the reasons that we knew this was like such a good partnership, right? It's like we just heard enough of these types of challenges and we're like, we probably don't need to staff this ourselves when there's like a whole network of people who this is like their expertise. And I'll just emphasize like one other thing you said that I think is really important is that maybe you're a co-pilot listening, maybe you're an advisor who hasn't like switched to Tern yet. Like the plan is we think we're going to like build an incredible combination of services and technology here that will be very compelling. But like the short term is like business as usual. You'll continue to use like Lucia as you like normal. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead in the script, but like since you kind of mentioned that, I did want to say like we want to earn your right. We're not going to try and force you into something that you aren't necessarily ready for. So
Yeah, no, that's a great thing to include and we're going to share this with all of our customers, and our co-pilots will already have known this by the time we're even sharing this, but not only business as usual, but we're going to make sure that we have co-pilots to support every facet of whatever your business needs. And this is not us forcing you to join Tern. It's just us saying we confidently believe in the direction of Tern, and we feel like we're uniquely positioned to support anyone that has an interest in utilizing our services. It also does help that you guys just closed an incredible round of funding. So congratulations again about that.
thank you.
For those that don't know, Tern just closed an additional Series A round of funding. This rounds out over $17 million in total funding, which is just absolutely unbelievable and incredible. And that just also helps supercharge everything that's happening on the back end of Lucia and Tern. So the goal was just to help make the two just become really synergistic together.
100%. And one thing I always like to tell people, because, in the travel industry, like most people listening to this are building their business from the ground up, right? Like they're reinvesting in everything. And so you can kind of hear these big numbers and you're like, what does this like venture capital thing mean? And like basically what that means is we found some incredible investors who believe in this industry, who believe in the team that we've built and are like, we're going to put millions and millions of dollars to capital to work so that you can hire more people to build for this industry. This is not going into our pockets. It's like, going a little bit to acquiring Lucia, but like it's mostly going to like, how do we build the future of this industry in a way that is indicative of like what the technology and the platform and the services that this industry we believe deserves and has been deprived of for too long. So it's really exciting to be able to build that for you all.
Can you share a little bit quickly, because you had shared this on the announcement that you did about the funding round, and I just want to highlight that here. You had brought up previously that it's important to note that the VC investors, can you just kind of walk through what that means
Yeah.
for they're less familiar with VC funding?
Yeah. So it was really interesting. Like one of the things we actually did. So Viewpoint Ventures is the firm that led our Series A. That means basically they were the biggest check into the round. And we actually brought Ryan from Viewpoint to the ASTA conference. And so I'll paraphrase one of the things that he said in a lot of meetings that we did together, which is in the kind of VC technology space, most investments have kind of gone to cutting out middlemen, right? So you look at Airbnb, it's like we've got people who are couch surfing and like there's this couch, like how do we actually just directly connect people who own a house to people who want a house? You look at, kind of all these different examples where like that's where a lot of money was made. And so there's this kind of pretty deep pattern recognition in your classic venture firm that like the model should be build technology that disrupts the status quo, that like replaces or that displaces. And what Viewpoint believes and what we believe is that in some industries that may be true, but it is not true in travel. If you look at the role of the travel advisor, you look at the role of the travel agency, you look at the role of the DMC, like this is a human-driven element or industry. And in human-driven industries, there's others, insurance, financial services. Like if you try and displace those layers, it's a recipe for failure. You will guaranteed like not be successful. And so they, like we, believe that travel is one of those industries and that if anybody who tries to replace the travel advisor or the travel agency will be met with failure. And what's very interesting is that there's not that many companies that have raised money in the travel space, right? But if you look at, the few that have, you see this playbook almost being pushed upon them where they're making decisions in the product that are hostile to the agency, right? Like they're somewhat sneakily trying to cut the agency out of the commission flow. And you can understand through the VC perspective, like, yeah, like we need to displace the intermediaries and reclaim those economics for ourselves. But there's so much that they miss about that. So we feel incredibly grateful to have VCs who are like, the worst thing you could ever do as a company is alienate any of the stack, right? And that's just like aligned with how we see the world. And it just, I think, should give people that listen to this a lot of confidence that from the people writing the checks all the way to the person writing the line of code, like we are all in on you. We are all in on building for you. And we think that's how you like really make a difference in this industry. And that's how we build a really valuable technology company in the long run.
It's so unique for that to be the case, though, because especially when you talk about venture capital, usually that's where the misalignment happens. And I've always felt very strongly that you have to be very careful who you take money from, because a lot of times the incentives are misaligned. And so in this case, which is so unique, and you're right, there's plenty of people in this industry and outside of it that are, using the way of working with advisors as a way to fuel alternative outcomes. And this isn't that. And that's part of why I was so excited about it, because again, same mission, same vision for what it's going to become and who it's supporting. So yeah, I'm very excited about that.
It's so special. And it was like cool. I mean, like we had a board meeting, right? Where we were talking about this like acquisition, and it was like really fun. The whole board was like, this is a no-brainer, right? Like if we can show up and better support travel advisors with services, like and really that helps them grow their business, if that helps them focus more on like selling travel and making money, then like, yeah, we should do this, right? It was, I think, a really cool, very quick example. Closed end of April in the funding round, and then closed on the first acquisition 3 weeks later, something like that, right? So it's like pretty special.
Pretty crazy. Well, I think across the board, I think there's a lot a lot of good momentum rolling into this and then going to be coming out of it. What's the number one thing that you're most excited for with the future of Tern, with the future of the business and the future of the industry, that you're just kind of like really excited about? Like, what's that thing that just gets you really excited right now?
There are so many things that get me excited, so it's hard to pick one, but I'll maybe go macro, right? Because there's going to be dozens of things that actually build up to this happening. But I think that going back to the invisible work piece, like travel advisors and agency owners today are so limited in their potential because of just the inefficiency of their processes and their tools. And it's not because they've chosen these, it's just because the way that these systems have worked have forced them into this. And so when I look at, what does the travel advisor of 2030 look like? You're spending time working with your clients, crafting these incredible trips for them in a way that's so much more efficient than it is today, and then presenting them in a way that's like super streamlined. They can like take advantage of this very quickly, and it allows you to focus on the client servicing, the client experience, selling to clients, and all the other stuff just sort of like goes away. And I think that's going to unlock a whole new era of prosperity for people who are like, I talked to one travel advisor. She's like, I'm doing $1 million in sales. I know I have the volume for 4 million. I just don't have the time. Right. It's like, I want to take every advisor who's like that, or every advisor that's starting their business, and I want to make sure that they are reaching their absolute best potential. And so I'm excited for like the day when we hear that. We're hearing some stories. Like I heard a story last week from somebody who's like, I'm already selling thousands of dollars more shore excursions because of some of the features that you have. And I'm like, imagine that, but like 100x. That's our goal. That's where we want to go. And so like, I'm excited for the features we'll launch this year and next year, and the services we'll roll out that really help us realize that vision, again, for everyone listening or watching.
Yeah, well, the TLDR here is that David's incredible, amazing vision for the future, that Lucia is staying the same and just going to support and supercharge through this acquisition all the advisors that it works with already. And for anyone that wants to learn more about either Tern or Lucia, well, if it's Lucia, you already know where to find us. But if you are a Lucia customer, you are going to be getting an option to trial Tern at a discount. So check out an email from us that we've sent to you, and you'll get an email from, I'm sure if you're a Tern customer as well, letting you know about the acquisition too. But for everyone that's just been involved, whether you've used Tern or Lucia, we're so excited. Would love your feedback on this, and would love your thoughts. But yeah, David.
And Grace, you said you're joining Tern, but did you say you're joining as like the head of marketing and services? I mean, this is like kind of a big deal, right? I mean, like,
I might have left that out. Sorry, I just kind of over things here. I'm also going to be running the entire marketing engine that is for Tern, and it's an ambitious engine plan that we have planned out, and just kind of what we're really hoping to accomplish here. This industry is incredibly just well resourced now with this not only funding but also acquisition, that I can't wait to focus all of my time on just sharing the good word of Tern, and also focus on building out the Lucia's arms of services. So head of marketing and services, and just going to be leaning into both.
And I think that's like so important for listeners, right? Who've gotten to know you over the years. Like I know, like as one of your listeners, as somebody who's like literally like one of my early podcasts was like listening to you talking about the future of Lucia. Like Grace is at the helm here of like helping understand, how do we tell the story? Obviously, all of you know she's an incredible storyteller, but also like how do we think about the integration of these services? So the kind of trust that you have in her, it's the same trust we have. So we're really excited to have you on the team, Grace. It's going to be really game changing.
I'm way too excited. way too excited. But I won't be going anywhere with office hours, although I will share that there is now another podcast that I'm going to ask you to follow. It's called Flight Path. If you're not already listening, it is the weekly podcast led by David and the product and design team at Tern. And they do product announcements, launches, updates, debriefs. It's unbelievable. And so you'll get a link as well in the show notes to go take a listen there. And you'll be able to follow along continuously still on all of Lucia's channels, but now Tern.
See you there.
Alrighty. Well, thank you, David, so much for joining us, and so excited to continue sharing the great news about this. But thanks for joining for another episode of Office Hours.
So great to be here. Thanks, Grace.